Welcome back to this second part of this two-part course, two-module course on active learning, where we started with an introduction to it and some strategies. Now we're moving into implementation. I'm going to be kind of helping you set up and prepare some specific activities for your specific instructional context. The considerations here we'll be looking at, we'll kind of unpack here. We're interested in how an active learning strategy can be used to meet your instructional goals for your lesson, again, in your context. And to do that, we'll look at what that goal is, how it fits in, what your teacher activities will be, and what the learner activities will be, what they will be doing during the active learning activity. Again, the broad definition we're using to capture all of this is that we're talking about active learning as when learners are doing things and thinking about what they're doing. To kind of get this sense of contextualizing an activity, alignment is as a useful tool, resource, view, approach here and in so much what you do in kind of instructional design and development work. And it's about these three things fitting together. It's about them fitting together to create a supportive, engaging learning activity, learning environment for the learner, kind of enveloping the activity in effective learning. Up top, we see the phrase learning goals and objectives. We're calling those instructional goals. In your context, you might call those competencies. You might call those learning outcomes, learning objectives, whatever's most relevant. That kind of guiding instructional goal needs to fit with the type of feedback and assessment students are given. There's an alignment there, there's a fit there, and it needs to fit with the teaching and learning activities. So that's the principle of alignment, is all of this kind of fitting and working together to create an effective learning experience for learners. In this context, in this course, we're less interested in what the assessment will be. We're more interested in just making sure we'll have something measurable. Students will be doing or showing what they know, what they can do, what they care about in a measurable way so that it can be assessed. And then this is kind of that contextualizing piece. Your plan is about what the learners will do, knowing all they bring, right? Their interests, their abilities, their knowledge, their skills. What then will they do? What then will you do as the teacher, the instructor, and what kind of resources and materials do you need in the space? What's the context? Where are you? Who's involved? All those kind of detail and logistical pieces could be considered as well. So let's walk you through three examples using the active learning strategies broadly and generally that we previously described and introduced. Muddy as point, for example, could be used, let's say it's in the context of a project and a team is being introduced to Gantt charts, a common project management tool. And the interest is that they view the Gantt chart for this project and provide feedback. So before we get to that, our goal might just be that we know they are able to read a Gantt chart and provide feedback. So we might start with some simplified examples of Gantt charts just to kind of get this conversation started, get this work and learning started. So you as the teacher, if you were facilitating this, you might have an image of a Gantt chart on the screen. You might have some text on the screen explaining it. You're likely going to make some verbal comments explaining it, maybe pointing out some different things, maybe discussing a few of the examples, some of what they see in the chart itself. But once it's presented, this is where you could kind of use this muddy as point strategy to check in. You could ask learners what's unclear. You could give them some time, maybe give them a minute just to think about it. You may ask them to write down some ideas. You may even ask them to write down some ideas on sticky notes. You may share a few kind of on the table in front of you or on the wall beside the chart or something so that everyone can see what others are sharing, and then you can have a more fulsome discussion, kind of knowing all the ideas in the room. But this muddiest point then gives the learners and the teacher feedback about the knowledge in the room, right? How learners are interpreting the Gantt charts. So you can address any misconceptions, you can clarify anything that's unfamiliar, give some feedback about yes, these are the key details, reinforce all those things, and then move forward together into interpreting an actual chart that you may use in your project. That's an example of muddiest point. Next, we talked about think, pair, share, and this is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. It's so useful. You can use this in so many different ways. Let's think of it in the case of a debriefing activity. You've had an event, the team's together, they've been a part of coordinating, facilitating, planning the event, whoever they are, you've got a team. And let's assume here the instructional goal is that we want to record 5 effective elements of the event so we can build upon those successes for future events. And we want to use think, pair, share to do that. So those involved could be asked what went well. They could be given some time to reflect on it. This is the think, right? And then discuss their ideas with a pair, with a peer. This is the pair part. Before finally sharing ideas with the whole group. And which is nice to let pairs share with the whole group. Not every individual wants to speak up, but we all feel a little more confident having known that our ideas have been validated or heard by a peer, and then we can share them aloud with the group. It's a great opportunity to kind of celebrate everything that went well, hear lots of different perspectives on what went well. And from the teacher perspective in this case, one of the nice things about Think, Pair, Share, probably one of the things I like about it, there's not a lot of prep, not a lot of resources you need. It's just about bringing learners together, asking that good question to get them thinking about, and then facilitating some kind of sharing and discussion afterwards. Third and final example I want to look at again with us is case studies. And these are useful in all kinds of contexts. These differ, however, from Muddiest Point and Think, Pair, Share in that case studies require a little more teacher preparation, teacher setup, and you'll see what that could look like as we talk through an example. So previously we talked about case studies of change management used within a group of leaders. Let's think about field work. Let's think about wildfire safety and suppression. This is the kind of thing where learners often complete a basic course so that if they're ever in an instance where there is a fire event, they can be called on to assist. So as a starting point, let's say the instructional goal is that learners need to be able to explain 3 common ways wildfires spread and 3 common techniques for fire suppression. And let's look at how case studies could be used there. So after learning about some fire behavior, cases of recent wildfire events in the region could be shared with the groups. Of course, this could be somewhat triggering, so we'd want to preface it. We'd want to make sure they know what's coming. We want to be sensitive to how this is done. But each group of learners could be tasked with reading the case together and preparing to share what the case demonstrates about fire behavior and effective fire suppression techniques, right? Using the actual historic events. They might be expected to make some notes along the way, use some talking points. Maybe they present it on chart paper, however you want to do it, right? But the teacher is selecting the case, including details that are within scope of what learners would be expected to know or do. And then the teacher would be kind of creating those prompts, those what is it we're asking them to note? How many things, in how much detail? You're going to be kind of structuring the activity with all that. And then while groups are sharing, there's tons of opportunity for feedback, right? The teacher might be asking some probing questions. Did you notice this? What did you see about this? Why did you feel like this was effective in this case? Any of that. Or again, kind of clarifying key details. The teacher might also facilitate some full group discussion, right? After a few different groups have presented, after we've heard a few different cases, you could then facilitate that big group discussion to talk about themes or talk about similarities, differences, anything like that, right? So in each of these cases, what we're interested in at this stage is moving from a generic active learning strategy into something that's contextualized for your instructional goals, and then designing, developing a plan that's mindful of not only that instructional goal, but also what you as a teacher will do, probably before, during, maybe after, and then what the learner will do during the activity, how you're going to prompt and guide kind of that activity, structure it well to help them move with you through it and move effectively toward that instructional goal and that learning outcome you have for them. This is the resource used to illustrate alignment. I hope that's helpful, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with in the course. Thanks for being here.